Oxford's known globally for its iconic skyline. Around the city are 10 protected viewpoints, each of which tell a little bit of the story of Oxford. And what I'm going to do today is run the 23 miles between these points. So our first viewpoint is at Elsfield, which isn't too far away. So let's get running. Here we go. Not far to go. So our first viewing point is just past the church and along this footpath. And here we are. So hills rise from the north and northeast of the city, giving this view. Basically, it's unchanged in over 200 years. Elsfield itself has two claims to fame. It was the home of the statesman and novelist John Buchan, who's probably best known now as the author of the 39 Steps. He wrote about this view, the only side of Oxford where there were no suburbs, for the college towers could be seen from our hill rising sheer from the meadows, and there was the same moat of deep country between its mind and the outer world. The other claim to fame that Elsfield has is that Jack Russell, when he was a student in Oxford, came to Elsfield and bought his first dog. He became Parson Jack Russell, and the descendants of that dog named Trump became the Jack Russell breed. So there you go. Okay, let's get going. Next run. I'd run across the fields, but the ground's just too waterlogged, and I know it's one particular field that I have to run across, which is heavy at the best of times. So instead, taking the non-scenic route of along the ring road. So just coming into Wolvercote, which is one of the villages that's got subsumed into Oxford as it's grown over the years. Just coming to our second viewpoint. So here we are at our second viewpoint, Port Meadow in Wolvercote. You can see Oxford in the far distance, but basically this is a landscape that hasn't changed in 3,000 years. There was a Bronze Age settlement on the common behind me. Still to this day, the freemen of Wolvercote have the right to graze horses and cattle on the common. But what many people don't know is this is also one of the homes of British military aviation. From 1911 to just after the end of the First World War, this was a military airfield. And the first duties of the flying officer in the morning was to clear the cattle from the landing strip before they could get flying. But fundamentally, this is an ancient landscape. It's beautiful. Anyway, let's keep going. Right, this was the one bit that I was afraid of. Yeah. So this very same stretch of river is the one that Charles Dodgson, otherwise known as Lewis Carroll, rode along with a young Alice Liddell and her sisters in 1864. And whilst they were boating up the Thames, he invented and told the story of Alice in Wonderland. And this is the exact same stretch of river where that happened, although hopefully it wasn't flooded then. Let's keep going. Okay, time for a break. Cheers. Lunch over, back running again. So behind me, this is normally playing fields. Now it's a swimming pool. Okay, here's the turning along here, and here's the park. Here we are. What a view! So actually in the far distance you can see Elsfield, where we came from. The very earliest guidebooks to Oxford, published over 200 years ago, recommend coming to this spot to enjoy the view. And they include a lovely quote about the view from this spot, that Oxford is seen to great advantage, rising like the Queen of the Vale from the bosom of a thick grove, between which and the spectator the Isis rolls his mazy waters, which I think is a lovely quote, describes it very well. But anyway, let's keep going. So the rain's held off. We've even got a touch of sunshine, which is nice. So this is the view of the Dreaming Spires. This is the furthest point that we have on our run, Boars Hill. So the poet Matthew Arnold stood on this very spot and wrote, "The tender purple spray on copse and briars, and that sweet city with her dreaming spires," written of this very spot. And also the artist, the very young William Turner, at the age of 13, also stood on this very spot. I just realised it's this guy who's on our £20 notes. He painted this view, and he recognised it as one of the most beautiful views of Oxford in this area, and it really is lovely. So this is the Hinksey Hill interchange. This is one of the protected views of Oxford? No, really. Apparently this was the first view that visitors from the south of England would see coming into Oxford. Now, yeah, to be honest, it's a bit of a mess. I think really it just goes to show what happens if you don't look after these places. They get built on, they get ruined, they get pylons. But nevertheless, hey, it's another one on the list. We've done it. Let's keep going. It's easy to forget just how close the beautiful countryside is to the centre of Oxford. It's just over a mile away. There's in these beautiful hills and green countryside, and now, yeah, back to civilization, roads, houses and traffic. It's so easy to escape. So time for another pit stop, and cheers everyone. So I made it to Iffley, another old village that's been consumed by Oxford, but still has very much its own separate identity. And as we're just going past it, also a beautiful Norman church. Let's pause to look at that. Isn't that lovely? So this is another view that we've lost. Now it's just housing, a hedge and allotments. This used to be all fields with a beautiful view down over the valley into Oxford. But this is part of Oxford's industrial heritage. These houses were built for the workers at Cowley Works, Morris Motors, home of the Morris Minor, now home of the BMW Mini. So it all goes to show this is very much a dynamic landscape where the land is being used in different ways. And it's a different side of Oxford. It's one that we don't often get to hear about. Anyway, let's keep going. So this is a very different side of Oxford, and it's just as real and as valid as the colleges and churches and spires. This kite, see him? Ah, it's beautiful. So even in the urban areas, we've still got the wildlife and the wonderful nature coming here to reclaim it. Okay, nearly there. This is one of my favourite views, really one of my favourite places. Wow. If the other side is the Oxford of artists and poets and the romantic side, this is just an ordinary street. It's an ordinary everyday street where everyday people live and people pass to and fro every day. For me, this is very, very much the people's view of Oxford, and this is why I love it, and I think it's just absolutely beautiful. Right, let's keep going. So this is very much one of the picture postcard views of Oxford. It's largely unchanged since the 16th century. and you can see further down the remains of the agricultural use of this of what's now the park. But really this view is testament to the Oxford Preservation Trust and the people who have worked so hard to save this park from development over the years. We're only about a mile or so from Oxford city centre, and I'm so glad that they have. South Park is very much an integral part of life in Oxford, and just look at that view, isn't it beautiful? Right. So there is an absolutely superb view from here. You can kind of get glimpses from it from the various paths, but really you have to have a key to the allotments in order to really appreciate it, which I don't have. So we're not going to pause here very long. Let's keep going. So that's a full day's running. We're getting into dusk now, but we've only got one more view to go and we're nearly home. This is another one of those weird parts of Oxford. We're really close to the city centre, but the birds are singing, it's green, there's hardly any traffic noise. It's really like being in the countryside, but so close to the centre of town. So our final viewing point, you've really got to know where it is. It's hidden down a little road, off another little road, and that kind of what makes it so special. It's a little hidden corner of Oxford with a beautiful view that not very many people know about. This is our final view, the last of the 10 protected views of Oxford. You really have to know that this place is here. It's this little park which is off Jack Straw's Lane, which is this quite small road. And all we have to do now is just run down the hill, run a little bit more, and we're back where we started from. So not far to go now. I regularly run along here, normally an awful lot faster, but it's been a long day and night's falling and it's not as warm as it was, but we're nearly there. Did it. It's just over 25 miles, an entire day of running, but we've done the entire circumference of Oxford. And that was really good. I'm really proud to have done that, and I'm so glad that you were able to share it with me. Thank you so much.